Ladies and gentlemen, ever since Chris got out of jail, a single week can't go by without him doing something absolutely ridiculous. And trust me, I know you guys see the titles of these videos, and you gotta wonder yourself, how can it possibly get more insane than it already has been over the past few months? And to answer that question today at least, well, Chris tries to go back and retcon all of the things he said about Barbara, which we know he's done a lot, but he's never gone into this much detail doing it. The lie that had me scratching my head the most, and I know it will probably have you guys doing the same, is Chris going back and talking about who he was talking about when he brought up that he was seeing an older woman a few years ago. Now, Chris brought this up to people such as Null from the Kiwi Farms, trying to lay hints that he was doing stuff with Barb, and honestly at the time, most people thought Chris was just referring to some random older lady he had been talking to, not his own mother. But now, ladies and gentlemen, in the current day landscape we're in, Chris is now trying to say that the older woman he discussed was actually Fiona, the suitress, you know, the girl he was gonna go meet at the convention. She was the girl that Isabella Jank was trying to set up with Chris, and she actually had a genuine attraction to Chris. But the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, this was a 19-year-old girl. So Chris trying to say now that this was the older woman he was talking about, it makes no sense, but in Chris's mind, it makes all the sense. So we'll get to that and all these other crazy claims he makes about the situation, but before we do that, we have to of course start with the pony shit. I know, it's every single time in a Chris video, you always gotta start by talking about some pony stuff, but if you're talking about Chris, it's pretty relevant to what he constantly bitches about, so let's see what in fact he is currently bitching about. Chris makes a tweet saying, "Okay everyone, I will answer the FAQ as brief and as direct as possible, with mentions, and this will absolutely be the only post I make anywhere online mentioning My Little Pony G5 with images, so pay attention." Now Chris is trying to act like this is some amazing thing, like, hey guys, you may have heard me talk about the ponies before, but you never have seen me post pictures of them. Why is that? Because they're not supposed to exist. Like, haven't you guys been following the story? Chris does not want these ponies to exist. He only wants the G4 ponies, you know? Imagine like you're watching, I don't know, I'm gonna throw out the show Malcolm in the Middle, right? You're watching it on Netflix or something. You get to season 4 and it ends. And then season 5 starts up and you're like, no. Like no, this will just not do. Like, they need to go back and make like a bunch more episodes of season 4. At least that's what I assume Chris is complaining about here. He really liked that previous season. Maybe it's like a Pokemon thing where like actual characters and everything changes. It's probably like that. But everyone who's like followed Chris for any amount of time recently can understand just how much this pony stuff means to him. It's literally a life and death situation, which you're about to see him touch on now, because you will not believe the importance of these ponies, ladies and gentlemen. You know, you thought they were just something that Chris and maybe some other bronies out there enjoyed. No. These ponies are what's stopping the world from falling into another world war. So then Chris says, "I foretold that My Little Pony G5 was not only going to be awful, but I also foreknew it was going to be the trigger of World War III, as well as a major decline for Hasbro." Yeah, because those things are on the same level, you know, the world going into World War III, where major casualties would happen, be a terrible instance for the entire world. That's on the same level as a major decline in business for Hasbro. They still have the chance to redeem themselves on undoing G5 and resume G4 to season 14, episode 26, that is. Oh, and Equestria Girls, because apparently they stopped that too, and Chris doesn't like that. He basically says exactly why he doesn't want this to happen, and I mean he doesn't go into detail, but he just says it's just awful. That's how he's described it before. Just terrible, just awful. It shouldn't happen. Because Chris doesn't like it, he thinks that it shouldn't even exist. If there are people out there who enjoy it, fuck them. They can't, because Chris doesn't. And now Chris has to make everything so much more like the serious. He has to make it as absolutely damning to everybody as possible, because that's the way he treats it. So in his mind, this is something that could be so serious it could turn into World War III. Not really, but he wants people to worry about it so much, kind of like he is, so that hopefully something's done about it. As we all know, nothing will be done about this, and Chris will remain very upset about this, probably until season 6 comes comes out, and maybe he'll like that one more. You can only hope, because it's you could see him like doing this till they're at like season 14, and Chris is a decrepit old man in his chair, just begging for the glory days of those ponies in season 4. My Little Pony G5's premature existence prior to hashtag My Little Pony G4 Season 14 Episode 26, a hashtag that nobody is ever going to use, on animated media, on TV, and streaming services is a major damage to this timeline. Had G4 and Equestria Girls continued on, and without hashtag Pony Life at all, World War III would have never happened, and a whole number of other bad thinga as well. MLP G5 as is a disguise over worse things and reckless greed in the boardrooms and executives. Epic not good. Like, it's an epic not good, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, to be fair, all these corporations are just surrounded by greed and all that stuff, so I doubt this is any different than anything else, but again, to Chris, this is the most damning one. Even the hashtag Brony Analysts all agree how awful, misguided, and misaligned G5 was, and with that only emphasized and further proved my point. Now, these Brony Analysts that Chris speaks of are the people who cover the pony stuff on YouTube, and Chris wants to be part of this group, or at least be part of their community so badly. We talked about it in last week's video, how Chris is getting really upset that these people in this community, who he really looks up to and respects, they just keep blocking him. And in Chris's mind, that will never do as well, you know? They just gotta single-handedly block every single troll, instead of just, you know, nipping it in the bud from the beginning and blocking Chris, because again, that's not cool. It's an epic not good, ladies and gentlemen. It really is. So he looks at these people and what they say as absolute truth and gospel. If Chris is Jesus, then the Brony Analysts are God. You know, anything these people say, Chris he seems to just run with it. And as I said, it really hurts him that they won't just accept him into their community, because that's where he thinks he belongs. He clearly feels like at home around these pony people, and he also thinks he's like a worldwide celebrity, so he thinks he should be in there with the most famous of people talking about this stuff. And as I said, I guess because these people don't like it, I assume most people who like the pony stuff don't like this. Chris's opinion on this probably isn't too unpopular, but the fact that he thinks there's like some war gonna happen if it doesn't stop, or the fact that he's taking it this far, kind of like the Sonic Blue Arm stuff, is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, he'll always point to these random Brony Analyst people and be like, well, they said it, so yeah, it's true. You know, he's a 40-year-old man who looks at these people who are probably younger than him like they're his father figure. Poor Bob, man. My deal with G5 has absolutely nothing to do with the art style or quality. My deal was and is that this My Little Pony G5 just does not exist, nor belong at all in this timeline and universe, and it is better to just not only ignore it and boycott My Little Pony G5, but also not to have any media from artists or chroniclers in and outside of Hasbro Online. So it's really funny that he says this, and under this tweet is a picture of one of the ponies who I presume is from this My Little Pony G5 thing. If it's to be believed what Chris said in the beginning, this is the only time he'll ever post media from it. I guess he just liked this one particular pony. It's purple, and I think that's his go-to color in these situations. I mean, it's why he loves Magichan so much. But yeah, he just wants all these people to just stop it. If you're an artist, if you're a chronicler, just knock it the fuck off. If we're being honest, all this tweet reads as is Chris sitting somewhere in his computer chair right now, bouncing up and down, flailing his arms, really upset that the internet is just not doing what he told it to do. You know, remember when Bob stepped in his room and was like, listen to me, you go get all that shit off of there, off the internet. And Chris is like, you know, I'll tell everyone at my command to take that stuff down. That's what he's doing now, basically. He's like, pony people, now. Like, he wants that shit gone. And honestly, I'm surprised he hasn't taken any more crazy measures to try to get that goal. We saw what he did with the Sonic Blue Arm stuff, literally going into GameStops and replacing the covers of the games with his own custom-made ones. He even maced a GameStop employee over it. Maybe not maced, maybe pepper sprayed, but nonetheless, he sprayed some type of like chemical substance at an employee there because of of this Sonic Blue Arm fiasco, and it seems like he's just as mad about this as he was about that. So let's all hope Chris can just keep this bottle up inside him, and it can be that one-sided war that he fights in his head, and he's not going to go out in the street and actually, like, harm people over the really meaningless, like, deal over these ponies here. And also, the My Little Pony livestream episodes on My Little Pony Official on YouTube, please fix the thumbnail on your recent Equestria Girls livestreams. You've been using the wrong one on those for days now. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I will say this. That absolutely is something that Chris would notice. So if they are messing up on that, you might want to listen to Chris on this one, because he probably has a keen eye for these very minute details in these streams they're doing. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I'll go out on a limb and say Chris is right about that. And I still continue to not watch, read, nor acknowledge anything My Little Pony G5 in positivity until only after My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 14 Episode 26 is aired on TV and streaming services, with all of the canon and continuity level episodes, specials, and even a movie that is not a new generation within all of that preceding it, on TV and streaming media in animated glory with the original cast, staff, and animation programs used originally. Period. Yeah, this all just comes off as Chris not wanting to give away the past. He's living so deeply in the past, he can't imagine his life without this particular pony shit going on. And it's always been Chris's running theme. He doesn't like change. He's mentioned that many times before. He hates changes. And this one right here is just one that really, really gets at him. And like I said, as you can see, he's talked about this so much. It's really going to be the running theme of what Chris talks about, I think, over the next year or so. It's the only thing that he really has to fight for. He thinks that he's already cleared his good name, even though it happened between him and his mom. I mean, listen to the way he talks to the next person we're going to look at. But this, the whole pony situation, no. No, this is something that he has to fight tooth and nail for, and just expect him to keep on fighting that good fight. Chris ends this by saying, "I do not care if you consider this a too long didn't read statement, but it is divine and metaphysical fact. Period." Again, I feel like every time he says period, it's like, hey, like I am now ending the conversation and you will listen to me. He talks to everybody like his parents would talk to him. And then finally, so heed my words. He doesn't say any more words after that, but the previous words are the ones you gotta heed. And then he decides to put like every religion's emoji there. You know, the Star of David, a crucifix. He just making sure nobody's left out. I see a yin and a yang right there. But of course, there's only one way you can end a tweet like this, and that's by putting up a picture of one of the ponies who you so desperately are fighting against, you know? Chris does not want to see any of this, despite him posting it right here and now. So, I don't know. But now we get into Chris's justification for his crimes against Barbara. Because Chris was just trying to go about his day, tweet about his Etsy shop, until this dude right here named Jolly Goodman decided to respond to one of those Etsy tweets that Chris put up. And this really snowballed into Chris responding to a bunch of people asking him about this situation, despite him saying that he'll never talk about this publicly, period, because he did nothing wrong. But he was probably feeling a little bit on edge that day and felt the need to defend himself, and he was a little upset that people weren't asking about all the awesome stuff on his Etsy page, and instead were asking him things like, "Isn't this the motherfucker, quite literally, who R-worded his 80-year-old mother who has dementia/Alzheimer's?" Now, I imagine Chris gets tweets like this very, very often. And he, like I said, he usually never responds. But on this day, Chris had to let this troll, this person who he deems so incorrect, he had to give him a response. And despite all of us knowing that this person really isn't far off from the truth at all, matter of fact, they may be right there on the bullseye, Chris decided it was time to give his 2 cents on this situation. "No, I was false witnessed and accused of that, but I never did that. I have said that and made that very clear and direct. That was a ploy of Isabella Jank. Now, let's get one thing out of the way here. Isabella Jank, terrible, detestable person. The woman boiled and ate hamsters. Like, she literally is scum of the earth. But But despite her being there, and despite her hyping Chris up during this situation, this is something that Chris did on his own volition. Bella did not go to Ruckersville or wherever and physically push Chris in the room with Barb. This is something that Chris himself has admitted time and time again that he did quote-unquote consensually, which doesn't really matter considering it's still incest, and it's something that he has said numerous times that was all well and good for Barbara, and he did it to heal her. So in his own mind, he was doing a good thing while he was doing this. And now that people have made him realize how terrible of a thing it is, well, now he has to push the blame onto someone else. That person being Bella, who again deserves all the ire and hate she gets, but she's not the sole reason that Chris did that to his mom. Now, was she a huge problem in him doing that? Absolutely. By her just hyping that up and acting like it wasn't some terrible thing he was doing, Chris thought that, oh, well, I guess I'm in the right doing this. We all know that Chris has always valued the opinion of a woman far more than a man, and really, the opinion of anyone who's willing to kiss his ass far more than anyone else. Because Chris has no other friends in his life, and because Bella was the only one who knew this, and because Chris is very easily manipulated and really just does what other people tell him, he thought this was a good thing. While Bella could have easily sat there and told him, don't do that, that's disgusting, that's wrong, maybe Chris would have gotten the idea and not done it, but the point stands that Bella sat there and told Chris how good of a job he was doing and stuff like that. Really weird stuff. So can you put some of the blame for all of this on her? You absolutely can, but you can't put all of it on her. Chris absolutely still is his own person, and even without Bella's influence, seemed to have done that to Barbara anyway. And there's always been those weird theories going around for years now about the weird relationship that Chris and Barb had beforehand, so who knows? Like I said, you can make your own opinion on this in the comments. I'm kind of curious about what you guys got to think about this one. So then another dude named Norm DePlume asks, yeah, but why did you admit to doing it and brag about it? And then Chris says, as I stated in the interview, that was part of the play along with Bella. So no. This part I absolutely disagree with, because Chris, even in the letters themselves, had hyped it up and said how it was all good, and what he was doing was a good thing, and he went into the disgusting details of what he did with Barb. Like, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never heard it, Chris goes into vivid, graphic details, talking about, like, that it wasn't just, like, your normal idea of relations. Like, they had a lot of foreplay there, too. Just absolutely repulsive stuff. And now Chris is basically trying to say that was just play along. It was silly games. Him and Bella were role-playing over the phone, and he was role-playing as an incestuous monster. So, I mean, I guess he knows how to woo a woman. I mean, it didn't seem like he ever had any genuine attractions towards Bella, and I say that because it didn't seem like he had any genuine attraction towards Fiona, the suitress, the actual woman who wanted to be with him at the time. And he had said then that it was because Fiona was too young. You know, like it was because she was 19 years old and he was 40 that it was weird to him. And Bella was around that age too. I think she was like in her early 20s as well. So even then, Chris probably didn't have much of an eye for her. We know who he had eyes for, and it was someone far, far older. This then leads to someone named NyQuil Cigarettes asking, why did Chris buy a book on how to, like, you know, do that with disabled people? And who was the older girlfriend Chris was bragging about to Null? And then Chris says it right there, that the older woman he was bragging about was Fiona, at least in wishful thinking at the time. That doesn't make any sense because Chris made it known that he wasn't attracted to her. The older woman he was talking about was Barb, but now he has to walk it back and he's trying to confuse people by thinking that he meant Fiona the entire time, when in no way, shape, or form would that make any sense, considering that Chris is like 20-something years her elder. Like I said, this is some of Chris's mental gymnastics that he expects people just to fall for, but if you think about it any more than a few seconds, you realize, yeah, this guy's, he's full of shit. But where Chris really tries to do these mental gymnastics and try to sound much more intelligent than he actually is when he responds to the other question. Because he responds with, why wouldn't I? When the world is all mentally disabled in one way or another, even the neurotypicals. So basically he's saying now, well, I got that because everyone is, you know? I bought that book because it's basically a guide how to, like, love everybody, because everyone's disabled in their own special way. No, he bought this book in order to try to, like, please Barbara, like it's such, I don't even want to say it, it's so weird. But again, he realizes now how crazy that sounded and how crazy it was when he did it, so he's trying to make people think he's not like that. I feel like when he was in jail, he was writing these letters and he really didn't have anyone to tell him how weird this is, and he didn't think of what people like the Brony Analysts and all would think about this. But now that he's back in the outside world and he's like, he has the opinions of all these other people out there, he doesn't want them to think bad of him in any way, shape, or form. So now that the truth's out there, and that is what it is, the truth, Chris wants people to believe that that's not actually the truth and that everyone's lying and he's really just a misunderstood individual. You know, he hates his mislabelings. He's said that for years, and oh, what a terrible mislabeling this is. But that's really it for Chris's week on Twitter. Again, trying to just make excuses for all the terrible things he's done over the past few years, and he'll never change. He always has to make himself sound like the good person in every situation. There were a few other things that happened this week that I just want to brush on quickly. Number one being that yesterday Chris put up an Etsy review where he reviews the comments on his Etsy. It's just there's a nothing video. It's just Chris reading every single review in like a really high-pitched voice as he always does. And then there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, something that a lot of people expected me to make an entire video on. Chris did an interview with a person named Keffels this week, and I'll just keep it completely honest with y'all. I watched it, and I didn't really find that there was anything in it worthy of making a video over. I know you might be thinking, you just made a whole video over these tweets. Well, yeah, because Chris was saying some unhinged stuff, and even in that interview, he was saying some unhinged stuff, but there wasn't really any, like hard-hitting questions that would get Chris to actually have to really think, really have to get him to answer honestly. Everything was kind of there just to make Chris feel at home, it felt like. At one point, they talked about the court case, and the Keffels person congratulated Chris on getting the charges dropped, which doesn't really seem like something you should congratulate someone over, but I digress. Didn't really think it was worth making a whole video over, but if you want to check it out, you let me know what you thought about it. And until the next time, y'all, I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. I always tell you, I thank you so much for watching the videos and commenting and stuff, chilling with all the other homies in the community. And really, I can't thank all you guys enough for building such an awesome place for everyone to chill here. For real, it's always a cool place to come, talk with the people, see what's up, and, you know, never be able to thank y'all enough for that. So until the next one, I'm out of here. You guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on the next one, everyone.